And away we go.
We saw the diamond in feature it's closing you. From the human race was soon subdued. What did set free? Our contingent was one top of the we need to understand the problems we can see. Migrate your children.
And welcome to the Biblical History Skeptics podcast. That was the Marsh family from England singing AI Filling Us with Alarm. That is a parody of Video Killed the Radio Star by the Buggles. Classic. Good to see you again, Sweet Pea. How are we doing?
We're doing well. How is everybody? How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Doing great. Doing awesome. Couldn't be
Good,
better.
Good. I'm going to skip my ass to TikTok in a minute to open that up.
All right. We've got a lot to go over. Glad you could join us. For those of you listening, we are live on TikTok. We are live on YouTube. We are live on Facebook. I tried Instagram and X, but they wanted me to have a premium account. So I said, no. I'm not going to invest in a premium account. There's no reason for that. I'm not going to give Elon Musk any more of my hard-earned dollars. But yeah, I thought you'd get a kick out of that. So, and away we go. Good to see everybody here. If you're turning into TikTok, we do have a stream going on YouTube in case you wanted to watch the videos and see the graphics that I put on the screen. Unfortunately, TikTok is not letting me use a third-party streaming platform. Otherwise, you would see everything I see. It's a sad. So, the first pick of today, the Maine governor. Remember her? Basically staring down Trump. Basically, she says she's unfazed by loud men. She was with a gathering of elected officials, and Trump asked if she was going to comply with his dictates and dictations or what have you. Basically, he threatened to cut off all federal funding if she didn't bow down and submit. And her famous words were, "See you in court." Unfazed by loud, ignorant, stupid men. I agree with that. We need to see more of that instead of this capitulation. Now we've got the governor of Michigan doing a pilgrimage to the White House, abasing herself in front of Trump, made her look like an idiot in front of the entire world. Gretchen Wilson, I'm talking about. Gretchen Wilson. So yeah, it's amazing, and she looked miserable too. I don't have a graphic of that, but she just looked like she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. See the difference? You know, this is what happens. Everything Trump touches dies, okay? And who do these tyrants think they are, right? I mean, they think because they are in a group that they are protected by the group and that they can get away with anything, you know? They do not have the ovarian fortitude to stand up and say, "Fuck you, and I won't do what you tell me. I'll see you in court." They don't. They can't do it. They're not woman enough to do that. So they go out in packs, you know, and they've got all three branches of government too, and they think they're protected by that. Well, they haven't factored in the war on greed. Good to see everybody on TikTok. All right, making sure I didn't skip any comments. I'm trying to include comments on TikTok as well. I don't see any comments. Let me know, Sweet Peep, pin it. Pin a comment if you think I need to see it and read it. Yeah, Gretchen Whitmer, she has been, I don't know. I'm not getting good vibes from her anymore. What are we talking about tonight? We are talking about everything and anything. Anything goes. Gretchen Whitmer literally debased herself in front of the Trump administration, going down to the White House. I had a lot of hopes for her, but if she thinks that she's going to get brownie points with the Trump administration, you know, obeying in advance, I don't get it. Throwing black women under the bus, trying to get crumbs from Trump's table. What do you think you're going to accomplish? You know? I loved her in the beginning too. I really did, but there's a picture of her. There's video footage of her just recently last week going down to the White House and just, I mean, she looked miserable too. She's standing in front of the camera and she's just looking at her shoes. She was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and I really feel bad because if she reminds me of the governor of California, Mr. Slick Willie. His name is not coming to mind right now. You don't even know her name. Well, the big Gretch. I'm almost to the, if she keeps doing this, I'm going to get to the point where I don't even want to know her name. If she keeps capitulating to the Trump administration and throwing black women under the bus, it's like the governor of California. He is so forgettable, I don't even know his name. Okay, secular talk from Blue Sky. Kyle Kalinske from the Kyle Kalinske show. He says he's got a picture of Elon Musk waving that stupid chainsaw, and it says, quote, "He always tries to be funny, and he's not funny. He's not funny at all." The Trump administration official about working with Elon Musk. So this is an unnamed person who will not be quoted. There's Elon Musk with his stupid, he looks like a 12-year-old in sunglasses. You know those sunglasses you used to get at the gas station? And then he's got that dark MAGA hat on. Complete and total cockwomble. Let's see. Yeah, the Kyle Kalinske show, I used to listen to him. I just got so inundated with podcasts, I just couldn't keep up with his show. He's a great guy. This unelected bureaucrat, also known as Elon Musk, who thinks he can come in, steal our money under the guise of Doge, getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. Literally giving rise to waste, fraud, and abuse. You know what? He can get fucked. That's our money. That is our money Elon Musk is stealing. Our money. Don't get that through our heads. He's stealing it from federal workers. He's stealing it from retirees. He's stealing it from scientists, USAID workers. Not one single case, think about this, not one single case has been brought up on charges. Not one person has been charged with fraud, waste, and abuse. It's a scam. It's a grift. They're lying to you. They're lying to us. They're lying to everybody. Your thoughts, P?
Yeah, they are definitely stealing from people. I think they're stealing from the veterans as well. I think this is why they've cut so many programs. So they can redirect that money towards what their agenda is, not what the people's agenda is. And I think it's absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, you know the grift is in when he talks about people getting Social Security. Basically, he called Social Security a Ponzi scheme. Social Security, that is our money going in, our money going out. One of the most reliable programs in the history of the U.S. government, besides Veterans Affairs.
Does Trump not understand how taxes work?
He doesn't understand what anything works. And I'm going to queue up. I'm going to queue up a video here. Okay. This is from Jess Piper. I'm just going to read the background behind it, and then I'm going to mute my mic so it doesn't bleed through. Basically, remember the market crash of last week and the week before last? I certainly remember. The market basically did what every economist said it would do under Trump. They warned us of exactly what a second term of Trump would look like if he ever got into office again. Did anyone listen? Well, I would say not very many people listened. I mean, they had Trump's dick so far in their mouth. It doesn't even look like anything got through. Well, it looks like there was a bit of a stock jump early this past week. As it's crashing and then it goes straight up and then back down again. This post is from This post is from Jess Piper, who's actually running for office and is still currently running for office. I want to say Minnesota. I could be wrong about that. Don't quote me. Here we go.
I want to know if there were lawmakers who made money there. I want to know their names. I want to know how much money they made, and then I want them charged. Martha Stewart went to prison for way less than this.
Yeah, I'm going to play it on... let's go. I'm going to go ahead and play it on loudspeaker here.
I want to know if there were lawmakers who made money there. I want to know their names. I want to know how much money they made, and then I want them charged. Martha Stewart went to prison for way less.
Yeah, and she's right. Martha Stewart went to prison for far less. Insider trading. So apparently there was a post by Donald Trump on his Truth Central. Remember that? Truth Central. I say it that way because that's the way he said it. Because his mind is literally turning to mush. He basically made a post on Truth Central. And that leads into our next pick. Let's see if I can cue it up. Okay, that's the video. This is from the Tennessee Holler. This isn't the correct pick, but anyway. Oh, this is AOC. Okay, I think I got it now. AOC, any member of Congress who purchased stocks in the last 48 hours should probably disclose that now. I've been hearing from some interesting chatter on the floor. Disclose deadline is May 15th. We're about to learn a few things. It's time to ban insider trading. Insider trading. This is exactly what happened. Insider trading. Let's not get it twisted. There needs to be a major investigation for this. And again, the Donald Trump post on Truth Central posted that this was a good time to buy. You know? He said, this is a good time to buy. Basically encouraging insider trading. They're not even hiding it. They're not hiding it. They don't care. They don't care if, you know. And thankfully someone's saying, someone's getting loud about it. You know. AOC isn't the only one being loud. But hey, she's the loudest so far. This is a post from the Tennessee Holler on Blue Sky. Basically, alienate our allies, check. Tank the market, check. Devalue the dollar, check. Dismantle the federal government, check. And then kill American tourism, check. And then there's the graph of our stocks going straight down. Straight down. Unbelievable. Oh, and I'm going to talk more about the devaluing of the dollar, but I want to mention more about tourism. Did you know that tourism in this country is at an all-time low? You know, do you know that every major country in Europe and Asia now has travel advisories warning its citizens about traveling to the U.S.? This is what fascism does, people. It kills entire industries. And now people are scared to come here and spend their money here because of how we treat tourists once they get here. We throw them into detention centers and treat these people like criminals. I'm talking about people visiting from Germany, Switzerland, Canada, Ireland. We've lost our minds, people. Literally and figuratively, we've lost our minds. We've lost it. Now, so I posted a picture earlier about AOC. Now, this is in reference to Marjorie Three Toes Green. Okay, who made millions of dollars on the recent pump and dump scheme that happened just last week. I'm talking about people like, Marjorie Three Toes Green. I'm talking about people. You know what's interesting? Did you know that she's got stocks in communist woke companies like Apple and Amazon. Now, I say that tongue-in-cheek because we know they're not anything, they're not woke at all. But she runs her mouth all day about these companies going woke and silencing free speech, and yet here she is making money from Apple and Amazon, just to name a few of her holdings. At least someone has the ovarian fortitude to call this out. Someone has the ovaries to call for investigations. I'm talking about AOC, Jasmine Crockett, and a couple of others. Now, I know she isn't the only one, but she's the loudest so far. And we need that. We need more of this. Any comments, Sweet Pea?
Nope. No comments yet. We love comments. If anybody would like to say anything to us, you're more than welcome. If you'd like us to talk about anything, please put in the comments. We will read it out for you. Yeah,
if you'd like me to read out your comments, say something. Okay. Post. Now here's pick number 7.
If you want me to read something out to you.
This post is from Oligarch Fuckery Detected over on Blue Sky. Here's a picture of Donald Trump holding up a sign that says, quote, "I still don't know how tariffs work," unquote. I mean, this dumbass. I mean, he'll never know how tariffs work because he's incapable of learning anything. I mean, his syphilitic brain is turning to Swiss cheese. He doesn't even know what he's saying half the time. I mean, he just blathers on. He goes from one subject to the next, and people are still carrying water for this chump. This bum from Queens who had a failed business. Go ahead and say a few words about the Trump tariffs. Go ahead, P.
I think Trump honestly doesn't understand how tariffs or deficits work. I think he is completely bonkers. It's like going to the grocery store, purchasing stuff, and then expecting the grocery store to pay you for what you want to purchase.
Yeah, basically that's his idea of a trade deficit. Basically, that means if you go into Lidl's and you buy their product and they don't buy back from you, that's a trade deficit, and you should boycott and put tariffs on at Lidl's.
Yeah, which doesn't make any sense.
Well, you need to tariff Lidl's because they're not buying back from you. You see? Don't you know how that works?
No.
That's what Trump said.
No.
Trump said it. It has to be
Trump
true.
Is illogical. His logic doesn't logic. His math is not mathing.
Yeah, I'm too sober for this conversation. By the way, today's brew is brought to you by a Yingling. I can't even pronounce it correctly. Yingling? I don't know. Everything's backwards. But anyway, here we go. Yingling. I guess.
Oh my.
I think it's the first time I've had this. America's oldest brewery? Ooh. Original amber. Okay. If it's American, I almost half expect it to taste like swill of some kind.
Hopefully it'll be half decent.
Well, I'm not going to hold my breath. Let's see. It's amber colored, so that's good. Well, it's drinkable, but I mean, it's not as bad as Budweiser or Bud Light. It's okay. I mean, if I had to drink it again, I could probably drink it again.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on. So we know Trump doesn't know how tariffs work, and he's tanking the economy. And we get to pay for the privilege of his ignorance. That's great. This is from George Hahn on Blue Sky. He posts a graph of the crashing market, and then you see a huge spike. So remember when Donald Trump did that pump and dump scheme and basically encouraged everyone to buy? Now's a good time to buy, and then the market went straight up, and now it's going back down. But that's not important right now. George says, I have zero expertise in the markets, but I know this is bad. Here's the secret, ladies and germs. You don't have to be an expert to clearly see the criminality right in front of your face. They're not even hiding it. They're not even hiding it anymore. You know? It's like they think, nothing's going to happen to them. They think, well, we've got all three branches of government. Trump posts about it being a good time to buy, and it was. Then he's bragging on camera, pointing to different people in the room, saying how much money was made on his scheme by this person and that person. I mean, they actually think they're going to get away with it. They have no fear of reprisals of the government, and we, the people, let it happen. We let it happen. White Republicans voted him in, and the white Democrats didn't show up. That's the honest truth. That is honest as I can get with us. We should have showed up in numbers way too big to manipulate, and we didn't. Some white Democrats voted third party, which ensured that Donald Trump would win, and then other white Dems didn't even show up at all. Feeling good about your vote or non-vote now?
Nope. And I think the only pumping and dumping going on is Putin towards Trump.
Oh, boy. That's a pump and dump we do not want to see. Thank you, no, sir. Okay, this next graph. This is from Spencer Hakimian on Blue Sky. I think it's Blue Sky. He says, I've got another complicated math question for you. Please see if you can help me figure it out. I just can't seem to. Okay, it costs $2 to make a t-shirt in Vietnam. It costs $20 to make the same t-shirt in West Virginia. After you tariff Walmart 50% and make the t-shirt cost $3 in Vietnam, does Walmart A continue using Vietnamese factories, or B switch to West Virginia's factory? Please help.
Now, I just want to go back a little because there was a point that I did want to make about the tariff.
Go ahead.
Just some fun facts. Did you know that the federal deficit since Trump has been in office has gone up 1.1 trillion? That is 18% larger than it was around the same time when Biden was in office last year. Trump has pushed that up. Not to mention, he is literally using taxpayers' money to pay for his golf trips.
Yeah. Remember when they said they were going to get rid of fraud, waste, and abuse? All you have to do is look at Trump's golfing. How many millions of dollars have they spent so far?
Right. So many departments have closed down.
No. How much money has Trump spent on his golfing outings?
Oh my God. Give me a second.
I heard it was 29 million last time I checked.
Oh.
It's probably more than that. Yeah, while you're looking that up, but let's go back.
Okay.
If you're going to tariff the t-shirt in Vietnam by 50%, it's going to go up to $3. So how in the world do these tariffs make it more equitable, to make it more feasible to make the same t-shirt here in the United States, that it would literally cost $20 to make the same t-shirt? Remember, the markup has to be way more than that just so the company can turn a profit. So what are you looking at? $30, $40 a t-shirt? And who's going to be working at these factories making the t-shirts? I still want to know. Who's going to work for minimum wage? Who's working for minimum wage at a t-shirt factory? Go ahead.
45 million.
$45 million. Did you hear that? $45 million on just his golfing.
And that is not including the 240,000 to refuel Air Force One.
I mean, does that even include his entourage, the Secret Service, everything? I don't think it includes that.
Nope.
Jesus.
Nope.
Fucking Christ.
That doesn't even cover. That is. I'm disgusted.
Oh, okay, I'm gonna
literally put that money into the healthcare system, so people are getting treatments and stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. All right, now I'm going to go to another video. Let's see.
Oh my God. Did you know that Trump's golfing trip to Florida alone was 18 million?
Say that again?
Trump's Florida golfing weekends are costing taxpayers 18 million.
18 million.
Mm-hmm.
So we're probably looking at almost 200 million if you calculate all of that.
Mm-hmm. In March alone, it was 26 million.
So Brenda Hunter says this. Brenda Hunter 94 says, so glad that the FBI is now taking names and notes on lies on the President of the United States. You know what's interesting about this? The MAGA voter was so concerned about the government overreach. Remember that when they were worried about 1984, Big Brother and the squashing of free speech? Here is Brenda Hunter basically congratulating the FBI for taking down names of people who speak out against the president. This is called fascism in America, folks. And you've got dingbats like Brenda who is happy about that. She's happy that 1984 is being brought to fruition. She probably shared some of the same posts on Facebook talking about how Big Brother is always watching, how Big Brother is always going to squash free speech. And here she is, thrilled to death that the FBI under the fascist regime of Donald Trump is squashing free speech. She's happy about that. So glad that the FBI is taking names. Well, you know what? They used to do that in 1930s Germany. 1930s Germany. Well, I'm glad you approve, huh? Yeah, buddy.
I bet Brenda is one of these people that went out, bought Bud Light, and then destroyed it.
Probably. All right, I'm going to do number 10. Here we go.
Racism in the Republican Party. It has to do with things like deleting the history of Jackie Robinson, deleting the history of Harriet Tubman, or deciding that the Tuskegee Airmen should be deleted, or maybe just defunding the African American Museum. The list kind of goes on and on and on, but I am not here to talk about why they are racist. I am here to talk about some other things as it relates to immigration. So let's get to that. You know, it's interesting because we got all these theories. I don't know why we put up with getting data and facts if we just gonna sit here and talk about how we feel. So, maybe we can inject some facts into these feelings. I'm not really sure. But as somebody who has actually practiced criminal defense, I don't know if there's anybody else in here who has. I can tell you that I have handled thousands of cases, not hundreds of cases, thousands on the state level in Texas, Arkansas, and I can tell you that, you know what? If I had to look at the vast majority of the cases that I was representing criminal defendants on, the vast majority of them just didn't happen to be immigrants. These are just the facts of my experience, and maybe the immigrants went to somebody else. I don't know, but I can tell you in my actual experience, in real life, in reality, and not in this fallacy world that y'all are making up where you hate on everybody. So my Republican colleagues are here using today to continue pushing this false narrative of sanctuary cities harboring criminals. Yet right here in DC, we have a 34-count felon being harbored in the White House. The hypocrisy coming from your side of the aisle over concerns regarding lawlessness is outrageous. Right now, House Republicans are conducting town halls with constituents lying about our legal system. That, quote, there is no due process if you come here illegally because you violated the law. That immigrants, quote, are not entitled to due process. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say that. If you come here illegally because you violated the law. That immigrants, quote, are not entitled to due process. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say that.
Yeah, there we go. These people do not care, do they? They do not care who they hurt. They do not care who they throw in a gulag, and they just do not care. They're so happy that the Trump administration is doing a fascist takeover and basically taking over people's rights of free speech. And they are excited. MAGA is excited about actual citizens being sent to a detention center or a prison in El Salvador. You think it won't happen here? You think it can't happen here? My friends, it is happening. Remember when they said, when people started comparing the Handmaid's Tale to what was happening here, and they said, "Oh, you're just over-exaggerating. That's not true. That's not happening. You can't tell fact from fiction." Well, here we are. Here we are. We're literally seeing the beginnings of it. They're already throwing people who are here legally, they're throwing them in detention centers. And only when there's an outcry do they respond. I tell you what, it's time to get the war on greed started. Sharpen your pitchforks, folks. Get the torches ready. Scottsdale Realtor is here again, just copying and pasting. Who knows what else he's going to say next. Stop with the nonsense. You obviously never traveled. What does that have to do with anything? I've traveled the U.S., which is essentially... Do you know how big the U.S. is? I doubt you're even from here. It's like going from state to state is like traveling from country to country. I've been to Australia. I've been to Auckland, New Zealand. Okay? So, you know, I don't know what nonsense you want me to stop, but okay. Video 11. We are literally in the dumbest timeline. Now, first of all, let me comment. Jasmine Crockett going down and getting dirty with these MAGA fascists. We need to see more of this. We need to see more of this. And now, when we talk about the Kakistocracy, what is Kakistocracy? What does that even mean? Your typical left fear-mongering. We are finally getting to common sense. Yeah, it's amazing. They said the same thing about Roe v. Wade. They said the same thing about women when we warned women would be dying from pregnancies. And now we see women literally bleeding out in parking lots in Texas and Mississippi. We just had a 12-year-old who's now 13 forced to carry a pregnancy of her rapist to term. We are seeing that. And you said we were fear-mongering then. Okay. Now, this is how stupid we are in this country. Kakistocracy. What does kakistocracy mean? It's when the least knowledgeable, the least competent people are installed in positions of power. That's what kakistocracy is in a nutshell. Here is our new our Secretary of Education. Words cannot describe the stupid, but I'm going to try.
Letter or report that I heard this morning, I wish I could remember the source, but that there is a school system that's going to start making sure that first graders or even pre-K have A1 teaching, every year starting, that far down in the grades. And that's just that's a wonderful thing. Kids are sponges. They just absorb everything. And so it wasn't all that long ago that we're going to have internet in our schools. Whoop. Now, okay, let's see A1 and how can that be helpful? How can it be helpful in one-on-one? And how can it be helpful in absorbing, more information for those fast? It can be more one-on-one directed. And those are the kinds of things and innovations that I want to see continue to develop. More information for those fast learners. It can be more one-on-one directed. And
A1.
Those are the kinds of things and innovations that I want to see continue to develop.
She was describing AI, not A1. AI. She couldn't even say AI right. She couldn't even say AI correctly. A1. What? A1 sauce? I mean, she has no concept. It's like she's reading it off for the first time. She has no concept of what she's talking about. She wants to install AI learning in our classrooms. Particularly, I'm not against AI per se. I have used AI or Chat GPT from time to time. But I do so with the understanding that Chat GPT and AI is not the end-all be-all. It is often wrong. It is often misguided. It is often basically AI is a glorified calculator. It gives you what you put into it. It just outputs what is put into it. What's interesting is they tried training AI. They went to Twitter and they started feeding all of this information from Twitter to an AI, and the AI actually started repeating white supremacist talking points. It actually went racist because of it. Because of all of the toxicity that was on Twitter at the time. And it's gotten even worse. You think it's bad now. It's gotten even worse. We're gonna give the kids an A1 learning. A1 learning. We got to give it to them. Her last name is McMahon or something. I think she's the wife of Ed McMahon or McMahon or whatever the fuck his name is. He does the WWE World Wrestling Federation or something. McMahon, whatever. Ugh.
McMahon, man.
And I think that's his wife, who has now been awarded. This is what I mean by kakistocracy, awarding the least competent people to government office. This is what happens when we do not engage. This is what happens when we do not vote. If you do not let your voice be known, you're either at the table or on the menu. You decide. If you don't participate, this is what you get. Or if you participate in fascism and vote Republican, this is also what you get. Unbelievable. It's like we have not learned at all, have we? It's amazing. It's shameful, is really what it is. I've got one last video.
Tells us that
this is Jasmine Crockett on All In with Chris Hayes on MSNBC. Let me go ahead and mute and cue that up.
We have a question.
Go ahead. What's the question? The woman who talks about A1. Yeah, that's exactly who it is. A1. Yeah, we're going to give the kids A1 sauce in schools. Exactly it. Unbelievable.
Crying, Sean?
What's that? Who's crying?
I want to know who Sean thinks crying.
Oh, that's okay. Big Sean. He's a big muscle, no brain. I'm not worried about what Sean thinks. Yeah, all of his brains is in his biceps, and that's not saying much. Okay, here we go.
Tells us, though, is that their propaganda is working, right? And that is what's so dangerous. This administration has someone that is heading up DHS that is going out there cosplaying with guns that it's clear she don't even know how to operate the guns. And, you know, she's taking these photos, you know, with people, and they're telling them, yeah, they're Venezuelan gang members, right? And so they are telling people, listen, we're getting rid of the bad people, right? And we don't have enough stories because obviously they decided they were going to get rid of due process to know whether or not you really are going and getting the bad guys. There's somebody straight out of Dallas, Texas, who literally was snatched up and sent off to this same place because he had an autism tattoo, you know? And so they don't know the real stories. They only know what they're presented with. And we know that for whatever reason, when Trump and his cronies present lies, the American people fall in love. But the reality of this administration is a whole other story. They don't know the real stories. They only know what they're presented with. And we know that for whatever reason, when Trump and his cronies present lies, the American people fall in love. But the reality of this administration is a whole other story.
Yeah, it's amazing. So she's referring to Kristi Noem. Jasmine Crockett on Chris Hayes, calling out dipshits like Kristi Noem who cosplay as ICE agents going out to make arrests and arresting law-abiding people who are waiting for court dates to determine their status as an asylum seekers, hoping for citizenship. They've actually arrested people with okay, whatever. Basically, they arrested a person with an autism sticker or autism tattoo. And basically, it was to pay homage to his dead brother. Now, what's interesting is one of the characteristics of the of ICE. One of their things that they look for is gang tattoos that link back to gangs. And this is how stupid and incompetent they are. Yeah. And so remember, Biden said he didn't have the power to close the border, so you guys start with a lie. First of all, the border has never been closed at any time. We have never, ever closed the border. The border has never been closed in the history of this country. They didn't come here illegally. So, asylum seekers and people petitioning for legal status, they're not here illegally. You guys do not know what legal and illegal even is. You know, they're brown people, so I guess they're illegal by default. And that's how you MAGA operate. You guys are pathetic. You guys are miscreants. You don't know the law, you're ignorant, and you're thrilled to death by it. Well, kiss your 401k goodbye, because that's the price you pay for fascism. And when you go to retire, you're going to be lucky to even get a Social Security. Have fun with that. Okay, pick 13. This is the last picture of the. This was from Blue Sky. I like the host. Oh, thank you, Will. I appreciate that. This is graphic number 13. This is from Blue Sky. Never trust anyone with a gun in one hand and a Bible in the other. I will say that again. Never trust anyone with a gun in one hand and a Bible in the other. Remember, there was a quote that says, when fascism comes to America, it will be draped or covered in a flag and carrying a cross. These right-wing evangelical fundamentalist Christian nationalists have no love or allegiance to this country. Okay, I'll say it again. These right-wing evangelical fundamentalist Christian nationalists have no love or allegiance to this country. The right-wing evangelical fundamentalist Christian nationalist has no love or allegiance because they believe they have the right to bring this country under the dictatorship or rule of a theocracy. one that is ruled by their interpretation of their scripture, their personal interpretation, with idioms and idiotic statements such as, oh, it is better to obey God rather than men, or this world is not my home, I'm just passing through. Does that sound familiar? You know? They have no love for this country. They would actually see it burn to the ground because they believe this country deserves the punishment of their God. That is how sick and twisted these people are. And MAGA, people who are not actually overly religious, have taken on the same talking points and conspiracy theories. How much money did the contract you took pay? Oh, Richard Potter, I cannot tell you. I am literally swimming in cash right now. In fact, I've got so much cash flowing in, my chair is actually elevating. I have to adjust the camera just so I don't rise above the picture because all the cash is pushing me up. I mean, I just can't tell you, Richard, how much money I'm making. People think that anybody who hates Donald Trump, fascism, and MAGA, they think we're getting paid. No, we hate you all for free. We hate you all for free. Yeah. We don't have to get paid for this. By the way, I heard the starting rate is only 20,000. The fuck?
Wow.
20,000, that's minimum wage. That's less than minimum. What is minimum wage? Minimum wage in this country is what, 40,000? $20,000? Who would take a job for $20,000? Are you insane, Richard? By the way, if you are subscribed and are a follower and you have paid the TikTok coin for a team quest, you're on the Skeptically Speaking team, we're going to move on to a subscriber only. Let's see if I can do it. This will be the first time I've done it. See, this is what 20,000 gets you on this channel. Anyway, because I gotta go into the book. Let's see. The book I've been reading. Let me see if I can get it out without knocking anything over. Christ before Jesus. That's what we've been talking about. You think that creating one channel is worth more than 20? First of all, creating a channel is free. Why would they pay us to create a channel? Creating one channel? Richard, are you insane? All right, I'm going to switch over to sub only live so I can dunk on Richard and his ignorance and stupidity. If you want to be part of the conversation, be a sub. Subscribers only. And we're going to dunk on Richard a little more. Unbelievable. This is just sad. Creating one channel. When in the history of ever do people... Oh, God. The ignorance of some people. 20,000. Memphis Vinny. 20,000. Where is this 20,000 coming from? Is this the latest MAGA talking point? Is this...
I don't know, but Richard sounds like a cheap date.
Ugh. 20,000 for what? What am I getting 20,000 for?
I don't know.
Anyway, all right. Let's see if we can switch over to sub only live, and we're gonna make fun of Memphis and Richard some more.
Memphis looks like a character of Monopoly.
Okay. I'm not sure what this is actually doing, but I think, this must be for people who want to chat. Oh, this is nice. So if you want to chat and you want to be part, you got to be a subscriber. Interesting. All right. Nice. And we've got to get 4,000 likes. We got to get that number to 8,000. Come on, people. Tappy tap. You can do it.
I'm tapping.
You can do it. I have faith in you. Okay, where are we going to next? Oh, Blue Sky, my favorite place to be. The haven away from people like Richard in Memphis. God posts. Did you know that God posts on Blue Sky? God is on Blue Sky. What does that tell you? Twitter lost God. He's manufacturing chaos because he has nothing to offer. No vision, no ideas, no interest in building anything, just tearing down what others have built. He's talking about the Trump administration and also Elon Musk. Bernie Sanders.
Satan's on Blue Sky.
Say it again.
Satan's on Blue Sky.
Satan is also on Blue Sky. How bad do you have to be? How bad do you have to be that even Satan can't stand your ass? And he left X, formerly known as Twitter. Unbelievable. Mrs. Senator Roger Marshall is a racist, bigot, and a bully. Of course he is. False prophet. Now this is a post about Pastor Joel Osteen. Okay, in case you didn't know. He's a false prophet. Protest, pray for pay. Well, we kind of already knew that. I mean, what's nice about Joel Osteen is he gets to appeal to both sides, doesn't he? So if you believe in the prosperity gospel, most of them, I have to say, most of them are Republican leaning, but there are some leftists that subscribe. I don't know why. What is it about Joel Osteen that appeals to you people? That appeals to people of any kind of faith, you know? Effing Nazis. Well, of course. Let's see if I can get it. This is
on words. Maybe it's the art of the deal.
Say that again?
Maybe it's the art of the deal.
Art of the deal. This is a message from Captain America. I want you to punch Nazis. Punch every goddamn one. Yeah. This is Pam Bondi. And his attorney general, Pam Bondi, claimed that vandalizing a Tesla is domestic terrorism. Imagine that. Imagine damaging someone's Tesla is considered terrorism, but storming the Capitol is considered peaceful protest. Isn't that amazing? An arsonist setting fire to the Pennsylvania governor's residence gets no response. Surprise, surprise. Well, why are we surprised? Carl Quintanilla says on Blue Sky, judging from price action, we are suddenly witnessing a comprehensive turn away from U.S. assets, stocks, USTs, corporate credit, and the dollar. This is the single most important theme to monitor over the coming weeks. For the moment, capital is flowing out of the U.S. People are literally dumping U.S. debt. China, Japan, just to name a few. They've decided they do not want anything to do with the U.S. And at one point, Greek bonds were actually worth more than U.S. bonds. How sad. How sad. Real Linda Mex from Blue Sky says, USA has a pest problem. Muskrat and lunatic. Has a picture of Musk dressed as a rat and then Donald Trump with antennas coming out of his head. I couldn't say, hey, I agree with it. Let's get to 8,000 likes. Come on, people, I want to hear what you have to say. If you are a subscriber, you will get to comment. If we get to 8,000 likes, I will turn the chat back to everybody. Everybody can comment. Let me see if I can turn it back on. Let's see. Okay. All right. Let's get to 8,000 likes. Come on, people. We can do it. Mrs. Betty Bowers on Blue Sky, I will never trust a country that thought it was a good idea to elect this ridiculous, malevolent man as its leader, also known as Donald Trump. Ayanna Presley. Oh, I've been forgetting to like and repost these. Yikes. Ayanna Presley says, the White House is a threat to our most basic rights. This is unacceptable. Mahmoud Khalil should be home with his wife, awaiting the birth of their son, not criminalized for free speech and threatened with deportation. Our destinies are tied. We need to raise our voices now. Oh, I can't wait.
Well, what you're seeing is that the survey data, so wages went down by more than prices, as we thought these cheap goods were going to revolutionize America. In fact, it was the opposite. Welfare went down. We had Angus Deaton write a whole book about the deaths of despair that were related to this. And so I think we're very optimistic about the fact that people are going to have more money in their pockets and that they're going to have a higher standard of living.
Well, right now, I mean, wealth has disappeared from the market. And as you know, the fears of a global recession or a United States recession have increased even among business supporters, business leaders who support President Trump.
Well, what you're seeing is that the survey data is what we call is soft data. The survey data has been showing that people are anxious about the changes a little bit, but the hard data have been really, really strong, as you know. In fact, if you look at the latest jobs report, it was way, way above even what I expected. And so what's happening is that people are racing to create jobs and to make stuff here in the U.S. If they make it in the U.S., they're not going to pay any tariff. And there's an explosion in the labor market that's really surprised me, right? And so you can't have a lot of new employment and then have like a recession. It's just
but you know, the jobs data was from before the Liberation Day. I mean, it was before all these global.
Well, not all those, but also it was clear, I think, that the jobs data were anticipation of something happening, something big, and that would be only rational for firms to think that way.
All right, Kevin Hassett, thank you so much for.
My gosh. I'm sorry. Jake Tapper is one of the weakest. This is why CNN kept him, because he offers very little pushback. He's soft-soaked, and he just let this smarmy asshole run roughshod and lie to the American people. No, they're not rushing to create these products here at home. It would take 10 to 15 years. 10 to 15 years to actually establish all of these businesses and manufacturing here in this country. It's not happening. And even if you could magically build it, who is going to work these factories for minimum wage? Am I? Are you? Are you? Not I. I haven't worked minimum wage since 2005. I'm not going back. I've been on minimum wage. It's fucking hell. Who wants to hear that? Who wants to live off of that? Who? Which among you would change your jobs right now to support American businesses here? Which one of you would quit your job tomorrow to work minimum wage in these factories? Unbelievable. A Trump administration walks back tariff exemption on electronics. Again, first they're saying they're going to have tariffs. Then they say, oh, well, we're going to exempt certain people. Then they're going to say, oh, well, no. They're going to go forward. We're literally throttling the market. U.S. Customs and Border Protection claimed late on Friday that important electronics such as smartphones, laptops, and more would be exempt. Surprise, surprise, they're not being exempt anymore because we've got a bunch of morons who don't know how tariffs work or how to even do strategic surgical tariffs, which is actually a thing. They're not doing it. Again, I am way too sober for this. I'm just going to pour myself another Yingling. I mean, it's not great. It's not terrible, but it's not great. Oh my God. Over 50 million. This is the Francesca Ramsey. This is her interview. She's the author of the Leopards Eating My Face song. I don't know if you remember that. Let's go to her account and let me play a few of her. Let's see if I can get to it. Oh, yeah. Remember the Trump supporter who was complaining that all of his stuff was being tariffed and now he was going to lose his small business? Let's listen to it.
I love this for you. I love this. Nice. I love this for you. I love to see you fail. I love to see your family be affected and hurt because you voted for Trump. Yeah, I voted for Trump. Absolutely. Did I know he was going to increase the tariffs? Yes, I did. However, I thought that the infrastructure would be set up prior for small business to come back to America and manufacture in America.
First of all, this Trump supporter thought that the infrastructure was going to be built, that this country would be ready for those high tariffs. Since when in the history of fuck has this country ever been ready with any infrastructure in place for when fascist MAGA Republicans put things in place? When has this country ever been ready? We weren't even prepared for a country or worldwide epidemic, even though we actually had a playbook to handle an outbreak. And we still weren't ready because we didn't have the infrastructure.
So to wish ill on someone and to love the fact that they're suffering, to love the fact that their family is being negatively affected because I didn't vote the same way that you did is fucked up. It really is. It shouldn't matter. Anyone that enters my life, I'm going to judge you of who you are, how you are as a human being. Are you kind? Are you polite? Are you sincere? That's how I judge you. Not
the leopards would eat my face.
I got far right-leaning friends. It doesn't matter to me. I like you based on who you are. But to see someone hurt and their business fail and their family be affected because they didn't vote the way you did,
eat my face.
I'm sorry, a lot of you. I'm sorry. We should all care about each other regardless of who we voted for. I'm sorry. I hope you guys can be better people. Good luck to you guys.
Leopards would eat my face. And that was Francesca Ramsey on TikTok. I never thought the leopards would eat my face. And basically, that is the only comeback. Here's another one of her songs. Look it up. Well, we'll play that some other time. But, yeah. These people thought, oh, this won't happen to me. Donald Trump isn't going to let it happen to me because I'm different. Now, let's listen to an interview with Francesca Ramsey.
This question so many times. Okay, I didn't know what I was aiming for it. Okay, I came across a story about this black gay Republican who got beat up at a Trump rally.
Yeah.
The first thing I thought about was this iconic tweet that says, "Oh, I never thought the leopards would eat my face," said the woman who voted for the leopard eating face party. And I was like, okay, maybe this is the song. And I couldn't sleep. I was in bed, like singing into being like, I never. I just like was trying all these different ways to do it. And then I put it out and it hit instantly. Now, mind you, this is 2023. Oh. And I wrote like 5 songs that bombed before the leopard song. I wrote, if it's not on the calendar, it's not going to happen. Okay. Nobody being like, okay. I was like, the girls weren't feeling the calendar. The girls were like, it's okay. Here we talk about the calendar again. Okay. It's doing the thing that I want, just not at the scale. Okay. So then I wrote a song about salad. I made a song about having a midlife crisis. Like, am I going through a midlife crisis and like all the ways my life has changed? Then I did a song, instead of an empty apology, write a check. And it did really well. It got like 700,000 views the first time I did it. And I was like, Whoa. That was a good one. I did a few more songs. I did a song called I Would Like to Know Less About You when someone overshares. But the leopard song, what happened is people started tagging me and being like, Francesca, you have to sing the leopard song for this story. And then people were like, you got to put it on iTunes. I try to do different genres. I've done it in Spanish. I did it with a full choir. Never thought that was sweet, my friend. No, I never thought. I'm doing it with a mariachi band next month.
A mariachi band?
Social media masterclass happening April 19th and the 26th. You can go to shop.francesca.net to find out more about it.
And I have to say, that was a very clever song that she did. Let's see. What else? What else do we have? I mean, it's just amazing. Amazing to me how little from history we actually learn. You know? It's like we still don't get it, do we? You know, we're not learning from history. But one of these days, it's going to have to hit us. Again, I've said this before. Until white America suffers, we will never understand. We're never going to understand what it means to have our actions turn against us. To be actually affected by our own actions. Hurt by our own actions. That is literally what needs to happen. You know, because we're not going to learn anything else. We're not going to learn any other way. You know, we're just not going to get it. But one of these days, it'll sink in. It'll sink in. All right. We're going to transition to another part of the show called Christ Before Jesus. We've been reading this book. And we have been just trying and let me see if I still have it. Christ Before Jesus. There it goes. Christ Before Jesus. Let me see if I can change the graphic here. Pause settings. No, I don't think that's it. Background. How about background? Christ Before Jesus. There it goes. All right. We're going to be reading out of the book Christ Before Jesus. And here goes nothing. All right. Christ Before Jesus. We're on the last chapter. Or actually, we're close to the last chapter. Yeah, almost. Okay. Continuing on, verses 9 through 20. This is Paul's epistle to, let's see, where are we at? Corinthians. Okay, so verse 20 captures an interesting development in Pauline mythology in which he claims to be a Jew to Jews, a Greek to Greeks, and so on. According to the church historian Epiphanius, sometime in the middle or late 2nd century CE, a Jewish Christian group known as the Ebionites said that Paul was a pagan who went to Jerusalem and wanted to marry a priest's daughter. He was circumcised and became a proselyte, but failed to win over the girl or her father, and then, in his anger, wrote against circumcision, the Sabbath, and the law. This passage, attempting to blend or explain the various interpretations of Paul, makes more sense when we understand Paul shows up for the first time in the 2nd century as opposed to a more traditional date for Paul. It's the same reason we get works like Acts of Paul and Thecla and the apocryphal works regarding Paul in the 2nd century and later as well. He was not a real person documented by his letters, oral tradition via Acts, or his deeds across the Roman Empire, but rather a late creation with a story in need of elaboration. Throughout the rest of Pauline texts, there are contradictions and other pieces of evidence of various authors writing under the name of Paul. While we can't address them all, we should stop to briefly discuss chapter 15, particularly the first chapter or so. While this creed documenting the appearance of Christ has long been considered a partial or even a whole interpolation by many scholars, it is considered by those from a more apologetic bent to be one of the earliest traditions or references to a historical Jesus. What it actually reveals is an encapsulation of 1 Corinthians as a whole. Competing traditions attempt to cram their groups or beliefs into the letter. For example, we get Cephas and then the 12, which is an odd wording given Cephas or Peter supposedly was one of the 12. Then we get the claim that 500 followers saw him, which the latter text of Acts of Pilate explains as 500 guards assigned by Pilate at the tomb of Jesus. Then we get James and then to all the apostles, again as if James were somehow separate from the apostles, and the apostles were somehow separate from the 12. Then, of course, he appeared to Paul as almost an afterthought. This seems more like different sects trying to claim appearance to their leaders or groups, which later all get merged into one more coherent unit in the Gospel of Acts. Back to the stylometric analysis. Because of the difficulty in separating the authorship of 1 Corinthians, we let it act as a canonical Paul anchor. In other words, if Paul was truly a single author as tradition holds, and 1 Corinthians was largely authentic, we would be able to see the text more closely related to it. Our results showed that 1 Corinthians and Romans were almost always together, with Galatians and parts of 2 Corinthians nearby, if not floating a bit further away. 2 Corinthians has work from multiple authors in it, making the reading of it as a singular text misleading. We will soon see this type of writing, a composite work collected from multiple authors. It isn't only found in 2 Corinthians, but also other texts as well. In Romans, we looked at Romans. It was easier to separate out of the authors than with 1 Corinthians. We first did chapter by chapter analysis, then applied the division found in Robert M. Price's The Amazing Colossal Apostle, in which he identifies several author styles based on theological principles and other means. While we don't use theological principles as dividing lines of our texts, we were willing to test the results, and you see them here. Price correctly identified that what he considered a Gnostic author was an entirely different authorship community from the rest of Romans. He incorrectly identifies chapter 4, which he does not call Gnostic, but shows up with a Gnostic writing consistently. We see, on the other hand, that his Marcionite proto-Catholic, those that opposed Marcion and would become today's Catholics, Protestants, and Orthodox churches, authors are actually a singular authorship community. Likewise, Romans 9 through 11, which he considered an interpolation, actually seems to be a single authorship community as well, though possibly different from the Marcionite and proto-Catholic one. Then there is one other segment that is so far away from the rest of Romans that it didn't even show up on this graph that we call the stolen sermon. Romans chapter 1, 18, and then 2:29. Scholar L. Gordon Rylands believed this section to be Gnostic, but as we see, it does not share stylometric qualities with the Gnostic sections identified elsewhere in Romans. John Cochrane O'Neill, another New Testament researcher, identified it as a Jewish sermon or text instead. This might be possible and would fit in with what our results showed regarding the segment. This portion of the text was clearly written by someone completely different and incorporated into Romans, but the text flows pretty well. It's almost as if the letter were written with this piece of text in there originally, fitting well with our theory of a collaborative effort in creating Paul. It also seems to be in the earliest version we have of Romans, that of Marcion from this publication in 144, another sign that this was possibly in the original version. Finally, we get to Galatians. Some argue Galatians is a composite letter, and the stylometric analysis seems to indicate that this is a very possible. Galatians is a heavily interpolated text, making a clearer stylometric read difficult. The first 2 chapters of Galatians seem to be a mishmash of writers attempting to explain Paul's backstory, including striking parallels to Marcion's personal story. Throughout the second half of the 2nd century and into the 3rd century, there are varying accounts of what the letter said at the time, so we know it was still going through edits quite late. On the other hand, in line with Tertullian says about Marcion's discovering the letter, the content of chapters 3 through 6, tends to align more with the Marcionite theology, aside from verses scattered here and there, which seem to contradict the bulk of the content. Such verses are likely from a later church editor, sometime in the process of the creation of our canonical version of the letter. What seems most likely is that Galatians 3 through 6 represents the original content of the letter as drafted by someone in Marcion's church. This was written prior to the falling out with the Roman Church. It's likely the late 130s or early 140s. Then, after Marcion is excommunicated, more biographical information is added into Paul, primarily in chapters 1 and 2. Significant portions of the content in these chapters seem to reflect Marcion's experience, and they are likely projections of Marcion's biographical information back onto Paul. This would explain why the authors took slightly different, but still within the larger branch. It could be the same author at a different time, or someone else writing a bit later. Eventually, other church leaders affiliated with the Roman Church would add verses throughout the text to try to make Paul more acceptable in their theology. Regardless, both sections of the text come up in the same general groups as 1 Corinthians and the majority of the Romans segments. This indicates that no matter how many hands were initially involved in the writing of the letter, it was written around the same time by generally the same group as the other 2 letters. These 3 letters, along with parts of 2 Corinthians, make up whatever the core Paul character might have been. First Peter. Now, we've addressed the biggest part of Paul, but why is 1 Peter here? 1 Peter is actually a Pauline letter written by the same people pretending to be Paul. The vocabulary is similar. The structure is similar. We don't hear about it until after the letters of Paul. 1 Peter was one of the most consistent texts in our study, always showing up in the Pauline tree. We're not the only ones to find this either. Numerous other studies on the subject have found that this letter overlaps with Pauline writings, though they are often perplexed as to why, as they hold many of the letters to be authentic. 1 Peter was likely added after the Pauline letters had begun to circulate, but perhaps before they were put together in a consistent canon accepted by what would become the early Christian church. We suggest a date range of 130 to 160 for the letter, as it reflects the more orthodox content in Paul that goes against Marcion, as well as a number of references to Ephesians. This means the author was writing after the publication of Marcion's canon. It's possible the letter was written by someone who left Marcion's church or school after the falling out with Rome, or perhaps someone who was trying to Paulinize the character of Peter. Peter the disciple was said to be illiterate in Acts, and others have noted that the author of 1 Peter seems to be well trained in writing as well as have background in rhetoric. Furthermore, Peter could be a native speaker of Aramaic, not Greek, and the text shows no signs of being from a non-native Greek speaker, which it would have if Peter were able to write. Another issue is that the description of Jesus' passion and the death in 1 Peter. Peter was supposedly there, but the description seems to be directly derived from other texts, like Isaiah, and shows no sign of first-hand knowledge. Interesting. This use of Old Testament scripture was frequently used by early Christian authors, starting in the middle of the 2nd century onward. And as with the additions to Pauline letters, we see in chapters 2 and 3 a reinforcement of social hierarchies, the Roman Church considered important during the same era. Finally, we get no reference to Peter outside or anywhere outside the Bible until 1 Clement, which is also in the middle of the 2nd century. If 1 Peter had been around earlier, and especially if it were truly from a direct disciple of Jesus, we would have heard about it from other authors. The summary of the core letters of Paul. What does it all mean? Romans, just as with 1 Corinthians and 2 Corinthians, have multiple authors. The same seems to be the case for Galatians. We don't just mean a few phrases here and there were added, but rather there are enough significant portions of text that the computer can tell there are different people writing different segments once they are separated out. Really, there are only two ways this could have happened. Either they were edited over time with each author or author group adding portions and somehow passing it off as the original each time they shared it, or these texts were created as a joint effort by multiple authors in the 2nd century. Many scholars have considered the possibility that Paul was a made-up character, or even just had his letter heavily edited over time, usually tends toward the first option. There was some kind of core text for each of these letters that got extended over time. Some make the case that 1 Clement seems to know 1 Corinthians and possibly Romans, indicating that these were the earliest letters. However, as we will discuss later and have touched on in Chapter 5, 1 Clement is not written by a single author either, and is a 2nd century text. We also don't have any earlier versions of the letter without a particular authorship group or a section that is clearly not by the same author as the rest of the text. And the texts all come to us around the same time, in 144, when the text first appears in the historical record. The strongest argument for this process would seem to be in Romans. Romans has conclusions at 1136, 1532, and 1627, with some arguing that there are even more. There is also indirect evidence of a 14-chapter version of the letter circulating for centuries in the Roman Empire, and Papyrus 46 seems to potentially indicate that there was another version and had only 15 chapters. Chapter 16 itself seems to be a letter on behalf of Phoebe added to the end of the rest. However, none of these omissions particularly stand out in our stylo results, meaning it could just be multiple authors signing off on a letter that is crafted collaboratively over time, as our theory presents. And, as with just about all canonical New Testament texts, we have manuscripts that, while otherwise complete, will omit whole verses or passages, likely either for theological reasons or the scribe making the copy. The Codex Boernerianus, for example, lacks the references to the Roman churches as the audience of the letter in Romans 1. As mentioned earlier in the book, textual variants outnumber the total word count in the New Testament itself. So it's likely that many of these don't amount to much in regard to the historical record of the text. We present the possibility that these letters were written as collaborative projects shortly before this publication. We know Marcion came to Rome in the late 130s, likely after the Bar Kokhba revolt, and tried to join the church there. We're told that around 144 he was excommunicated and published his collection of 10 letters from Paul. His Gospel Evangelion is a text he wrote called Antithesis. As mentioned earlier, Tertullian even tells us that Marcion discovered Galatians. We have no mention of Paul or the Gospel before this date, or a Gospel before this date, and right after they are published, we start to see a boom in Gospels, as well as numerous other fake Paul letters show up. All signs point to a fabricated character. What we suggest is that during the time he was in Rome, or perhaps sometime before, Marcion worked with a number of other Christians there on creating a canon. This would be something like a literary school common in the Roman era. Scholars such as Thomas L. Brodie, Robin Faith Walsh, and others document the writing process and presence of such schools in detail in their works. Some of these schools might be local, focused around a single teacher, while larger ones might span across multiple cities throughout the empire. Marcion had traveled across the Mediterranean Sea and was from modern-day Turkey, and close to where many of Paul's letters were addressed. With him, he brought a number of religious writings from these regions, such as the Thessalonian letters. Perhaps these letters were already written under another name, or perhaps they were written as part of a larger production in the Marcionite school. Once in Rome, given the various factions fighting, Marcion attempts to unite the church. Sometime around this time, a significant portion of the work attributed to Paul is written. Marcion also has a copy of Proto-Mark, which is used to write Evangelion, and includes a prophecy about the end of the Bar Kokhba revolt in 136 that is known today as the Little Apocalypse. Another round of edits are made to the Pauline text at this time as well. 1 Corinthians, Romans, Galatians, and parts of 2 Corinthians are also written around this time, probably using some kind of core text or story Marcion picked up in modern-day Turkey or Greece. We mentioned BCE Paul as a possibility of this earlier in the book, and this is one possibility of what this core text might have looked like. These letters then have biographical content, paralleling Marcion's experience. This was likely done near the time of his excommunication. We read about Paul taking money to the Jewish Christians in Jerusalem, just as Marcion does the church in Rome. We know of both their journeys to Rome being significant, and a number of these suspicious parallels, given that he is the one to publish these texts. By 144, there are 10 letters with Paul's name on them, as an apostle who was too late to hear the earthly teachings of Jesus, who descended from the sky in Evangelion, but was given a separate revelation after his earthly followers, such as Peter, failed to properly deliver the good news. After the church split with Marcion, one of the collaborators likely went on to write 1 Peter in order to build upon, or perhaps intentionally make Peter look Pauline too. Given this person was responsible for some of the Pauline content, it explains why the style, theology, and vocabulary match Paul exactly. Oof, you're almost done. This doesn't exclude the possibility of slight different versions of all these letters having existed. This would certainly have been a draft. And given the extra endings tend to be at the end of the section within letters, it would have been relatively easy to add the content after these endings, which largely consists of greetings, names of fellow Christians. Marcion took his version and spread it across the Roman Empire, and the opposing early Christians in Rome and elsewhere were left to react and attempt to counter the spread. We know Tertullian, writing in the 3rd century, attempted to pass an even more anti-Marcionite version off in his writings as the authentic version. His deception was revealed, however, by our discovery of early manuscripts that include some of his deletions, such as in Galatians 1:19, where he attempts to make Paul pro-circumcision. Eventually, this opposing group added a few of their Pauline letters and found letters from Peter, James, Jude, and John to reinforce their idea of Jesus as well. They even went so far as to write their own versions of the Evangelion and edit what would become Mark. And with that, we will rest until next week. I will finish the rest of chapter 8, and that will be our conclusion of Christ before Jesus. Let's see. Let's try again. Christ before Jesus. There we go. I couldn't understand why everything was backwards. I was mirrored. Okay. if you have a YouTube channel, please find Skeptically Speaking on YouTube and give me a follow. And you'll have all the rest of when I first started reading this book. So you'll probably have to go back a ways because this is an 8-book chapter and I wasn't able to finish every chapter in a single week because they're quite long. The chapters in this book are longer than most typical books. But anyway, I did my best. So if you'd like to listen along to earlier readings going back to chapter 1, give me a follow on YouTube at Skeptically Speaking. And also on my other channel, Skeptically G, which I'm going to change the name, we're going to be reading American Crusade. Now, before, on the old channel, I finally finished this book. Let's see. The Founding Myth, Why Christian Nationalism is Un-American by Andrew Seidel. This is the second book we will start reading. I'm going to be reading it throughout the week, probably starting Monday. We shall see. Basically, it's been depending on my energy level after work, because I have to read it after hours. So right after work is when I start reading that book. So if you'd like to join us for that, you're more than welcome. So I will be going live on TikTok as well, and we'll see. We'll see. All right, thank you very much for sticking it out. Please give me a follow, Skeptically Speaking, as well as Skeptically G. And look forward to seeing you all either Monday or next week Sunday. All right. Take care, everybody.
Holy shit, guys. Thank God. How could telling men to do better possibly create a rift? I see this on my lives all the time.